Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to topic 3 of this project. Now in this topic we're going to be just checking out a couple of renders which we have already done. The material renders we'll be doing right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up scene 2, and over here I'm just going to set up an interactive render. So let me just go ahead and simply click on interactive render and let that just start taking place. And now we can start to see how this whole thing is kind of looking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply first of all go to settings and make sure that the render output the image width and this height is fine. Now you guys can see how these renders are kind of looking out right now to be. We can actually change all our scenes over here just to have a look at the whole thing. You can see how the sunlight is really coming in from here, and you can see over here that very little sunlight is coming in. This part's really dark, but we are understanding how the whole thing is kind of turning out to be. So we can control a lot of these things once we understand all of this. Now over here you can see that there is something over here which is reflecting out too much, so we can figure out that there is some kind of a high reflective surface over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my Vray material asset editor on, basically the material editor, and now we're going to go ahead and select that particular area, and you can check out the reflection over here is extremely high. So let's reduce that reflection down, and let me just move around the model just slightly enough so that this starts to make a rechange, so that we can actually see how it's ending up looking. So we can actually have that. We can still see some kind of a reflection over here, so let's kind of reduce that completely and just have a look at how that's kind of looking. So now you can see it's actually gone away because the reflection over there was actually acting up too much in the whole thing. So maybe we can increase the reflection a little bit and kind of reduce the glossiness furthermore, and we can actually control how that reflection is going to look by making a couple of changes over here like that. And I think this is the best way to do it, by keeping the interactive on, because we get a real-time look at what's happening. So this is really important. Now as you can see over here, we're having a lot of sunlight coming in. I think we can soften that out. So let's go into the lighting and sunlight over here, and let's kind of see. You can see the sunlight is enabled. Let's say if I disable it, you can actually see the sunlight completely go away. So if you don't want to render with sunlight, you can actually just remove the enable from here. But if you have it on anyway, then we can actually check out how much is illumination happening, so we can control that over here as well. So for that, you can actually see the horizontal illumination over here is so much. So what we're going to do is we can change this now to different types. Just kind of check out which one you would prefer. So you can have a little different things over here. So we have overcast, we have clear. This is actually how the sky would be like. All right, so this is something we have to check out. Once we click here, you guys can see that we have some things where we can affect the diffuse, we can diffuse the contribution, we can do a lot of different changes over here and actually see which ones work better. So if I switch off the diffuse, you can actually see how the light is not being diffused once it falls in, yet the scene is being lit up by the render. So let me just kind of go in this side over here, so you can actually see how that's looking. So let me switch that back on. And if you don't like the amount of light that's coming in, or if you don't like the time over here, so what we're going to do is we can simply go ahead and kind of just change out the entire look of it by going into shadows and kind of just changing the whole the timing or the date. So if I change the date, let's say I change a little bit of the date, you can actually see how this whole thing is kind of changing to be. So do remember one thing, very important thing, you can actually see change over here, is that we need to work with all three. We need to kind of see the render interactive to understand how everything is looking out to be, and at the same time we need to kind of pay attention to whether things are looking right, whether things are looking fine, whether is this the way it's supposed to be or is it not supposed to be this way. You can actually see how that's kind of coming in. Here I can actually change the tone of the light. So if you want more white light, you can actually see if I shift that out to white, we'll actually get that kind of filter color coming in over here. If I change this somewhat to a bluish, we'll actually get that kind of a tone coming here. So you can actually have great animation kind of done up over here as well. Also, I think when you want to show kind of a very hot tone, you can actually put up a orange tone, something like that, or you can actually even have a very warm color tone which would be somewhat in the grayish areas over here, something like that. So I think we can even have something very, very calm, soothing to the eyes if we kind of have something created like that. So we just bring this back over here, and here you can see that the light is actually completely turning up a little bit. Let's change that. Simply just trying different permutations, combinations for what particular time is looking good, what particular setting is looking good, which one makes the most sense, what should we show in the particular view. So once you're actually set with this, and I think what you can do in this case is, when you're trying to find out natural light, is you can even click on settings and kind of give a material override over here. So here what you eventually see is only how the sky is going to eventually look. So you can actually see only where the light should kind of fall in on. So I think this is a good way to check out different types of lights as well. So definitely do try this method too. Now I'm just going to change the timings over here to kind of just see the entire light change. So even though it will be a little bit heavy, you'll still be able to see a lot of the different settings that you want to get out of here. So I really think that would be something great, and I really think this is nice. So it's on the bed slightly just at the edge. It's not overpowering the whole play. It's really right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm even going to go into the materials, and I'm simply going to remove off the emissivity that we have actually given to these right now, because I don't want to put out any kinds of lights. I just want to see the render with natural light and material. So for that, what we're going to do is we're simply going to switch off this emissive and switch off this as well. Or what we can do is we can simply click on generic by changing that to generic over here, and I'll just simply go ahead and do the same for that. Switch this to generic, and now we can go into the settings and remove the material override and go back to our scene 4, where you guys will actually be able to see how this render is kind of turning out to be. So let's just have a look at it for 1 minute. You need to actually observe everything, see whether some things are going right, because it's mostly about the lighting, I would say, in V-Ray. Materials are easy to set up, yes, you guys must have noticed, but it's more about the lightings and how the lightings are kind of portraying and playing. You can actually see that there are light sources in this as well. We have the mirror actually happening over here completely. We have the light which is coming out really nicely over here. So let's kind of simplify it even more. You can actually see the light which is coming here, the diffused light as well. It really looks good for an afternoon look. I think we can improve this even just with the white balance if none of the lights are switched on, but definitely we need to switch on a lot of the lights. So let's kind of try one night render and then one day render. We're going to try both. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off with a day render. So let me just show you how we're going to jump straight into that, but we'll definitely be needing to put up a couple of things like geometry and one or two more objects and things like that, and then we'll jump straight into the rendering. So let's just stop this right now and close this over here. And that's basically about, first of all, understanding the material, the lighting, the natural lighting, and how you guys will actually be able to see the lighting within this entire area. And if you guys don't want to go in for the render option and still want to just see the shadows, simply click on view and shadows, and you'll actually be able to see where the light is coming in from, and you can see that's basically how the light is going to show up. Definitely looks slightly different in V-Ray, but we can get a good idea of it just by even clicking on the view and the shadows over here. Now once we have finalized what the angle is and we have finalized a lot of the things, we can now simply go ahead and just do basic setups for when we need to give a day render. So in the day render we'll actually not be having this light, so I'll just shift it to complete white color over here for now, and yeah, that will just turn to white. Or we can even turn it to kind of just slight gray with a little bit of reflection, so that it seems like there is kind of some glass over there. that is what we're going to have to do. And I think these will not be seen eventually anyway. This is metal, so I think that is fine. We can let that light be on. These behind lights are fine. I think everything else seems to be okay. Now definitely one more thing I want you guys to see is we're going to be adding lights right now, and then we'll just keep them on disabled mode. So you need to add everything, but then definitely when you're taking out the render, you don't need to worry about it. So we'll be first setting up everything, then we'll do a day render, and then we'll do a night render. Now I'll click on the spotlight over here, and you guys can see in the spotlight I'll just have it in the center, or I can actually similarly enter into any one of these. So we'll just click out, no need to even enter, just simply take the spotlight and give a simple click over here, and you can see that spot has been added. Before that, let's go into the lights, and you can see there's another spot over here which I'm going to delete off, and I'm even going to delete this one off over here. So we have deleted all these spotlights. Now I'm going to add a spotlight in the center over here so that we know which spotlights are we adding, and I'm going to be copying this spotlight from here now over here, and we copy it on the side. Just place it over here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy this from here, place this over here. If you think this is getting a little bit heavy the way it is for me, what we can do is simply select the spotlight option and just go ahead and keep placing lights. But what will happen is you'll be creating multiple lights. When you copy, you're actually just using that one singular light. So that's basically why I was copying it. But if it does get heavy, you can simply just go ahead and add lights everywhere just like that. And that's also a very simple way to do it. And it's okay, we can end up with just that. That's also fine. So let me just go ahead and do these. Once I've added all these lights, I'm simply going to open up each of them and kind of disable all of them, because we're not going to be using these lights in a day render. And when we need to use them, we can enable them simply by again clicking on them and enabling them in this fashion. So what we'll do is, before I disable all of them, we're going to just take out a very basic render of these to actually see how these are looking, and then make certain kinds of adjustments to it. And for this, what we really need to do is we need to kind of override all the material to understand how the lights are looking, and that's a very important thing what we need to understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a good setting to the whole room, and I'm going to now take out an interactive render where I actually have my material override like this completely created. So I'm just going to stop that, close that, make the material override start, and then go ahead for a render. And you can actually see now how we can see how all the lights are really looking, or where all the lights are playing. We can actually understand the lighting a lot better when we have switched off the entire thing. Now you will not be able to understand the materials here, so what we can do is now for this particular area, what we can do is we can select that material and just give it a emissive property.